This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to episode 77 of The Horror of Babylon, where we discuss the Pet Sematary remake from 2019. I am Ryan, and with me, as always, is Daniel. Say hello, Daniel.
Ryan, sometimes remakes are better, but not this time.
Not this time. No, not this time. Thank you to our patrons, Abigail, the First Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron. And thank you to Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall, Morgantown, West Virginia, or at the Mall at Robertson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you can say hello to Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas, who I heard is selling the Morgantown store to become a hub for Arenco oil trucks. Trigger warning, of course, like all of the Pet Sematary stories, this one highly involves the death of a child. So if that is upsetting to you, beware. Our history with Pet Sematary remake. We saw this together. Was it on opening night?
Yeah. It was opening weekend. I don't remember if it was like the Thursday night or Friday night, but it was opening weekend.
You've been working Thursday nights for a while, maybe.
Yeah.
Were you working Thursdays back then, maybe?
When did it get released?
2019.
Yeah, so it was probably that Friday.
Yeah. And we saw this with Carrie.
Yeah.
Who you may remember from our coverage of It Part 4 and It Part 5.
She graduates nursing school this week.
Yay!
That's all I got. She'll be on the episodes more because she'll have more free time again.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to
Women's
that.
perspective.
Yay, not just dudes.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition.
I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
All right, background. Pet Sematary premiered at the South by Southwest Festival on March 16th, 2019, released theatrically in the United States on April 5th of that year. Of course, it's based on the novel by Stephen King, and it is directed by directing partners Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer, who together they have done some things, none of which I've heard of, but they worked on movies like Starry Eyes.
Starry Eyes is great.
That
surprises me.
They directed 3 episodes of Scream, the TV series.
Which is horrible, which doesn't surprise me.
They also did Absence.
I haven't seen that.
And some shorts.
Like, Starry Eyes is literally like, not Jeffrey Epstein.
Dahmer?
No, Weinstein.
Tambor. Okay.
Weinstein, that Hollywood producer that got in trouble for
bad things,
for molesting all the. It's It's Harvey Weinstein, the horror story. That's what Starry Eyes is.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
And this was written by Jeff Bueller, who wrote The Grudge 2020 and Midnight Meat Train.
Okay, that also does not surprise me.
I've seen Midnight Meat Train, but not for years, and I remember almost nothing about it.
If we cover it's a Clive Barker short story, so we might cover that eventually, since it has an adaptation.
I'm pretty sure you made me watch it.
Yeah.
It's like they stay on the subway after a certain hour, and
there's a dude who butchers people on there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The movie was filmed in Quebec, not Maine. It had a budget of $21 million, and was a smashing financial success. It pulled in $113.1 million.
That's not bad.
That's 5 times its budget, over
Yeah.
5. So yeah, really good.
That's pretty good.
Did not do so well with the critics. Kind of a mixed response with audiences.
I don't think the stockholders care if that's the if that's the box office.
I'm honestly,
I thought it would make a profit. I didn't do any research. I'm like, this seems like something that people will go and see, but I'm surprised.
we went and saw it, yeah.
But like 5 times the budget. I guess this was riding high, like right around the Stephen King It.
Well, it came out in 2017, which of course at the time was the highest grossing horror film of all time, and they were greenlighting Stephen King projects like crazy. In 2019, we got 3 theatrical Stephen King movies: Pet Sematary, It Chapter 2, and Doctor Strange.
Wow.
So it was a big year for Stephen King movies. Unfortunately, only one of those movies was good, but that's okay.
Isn't that the one that made the least amount of money too?
Probably, but let's look. Why not?
Yeah.
Dr. Sleep. 2019 film. All right, budget 45.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Budget was 45 to 55 million, and it made 72.3 million, so not great. And then I'm sure I don't remember it Chapter 2's, but I know it made a ton of money.
Yeah, it made enough.
Budget, oh my god. 79 million, and it made 473.1 million. Yeah.
That's why this guy's directing The Flash.
Yeah. Okay, so it mega success, Pet Sematary super success, and then Dr. Sleep not so good. And I promise you, and I know film is subjective, but I promise you that I really think Dr. Sleep is the best of those 3 movies.
I can't wait to read the book and finally see the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of a controversial book and film among Stephen King fans because it's so out of left field. Like The Shining is such a subtle story, and it's very like a traditional spooky story, and then Dr. Sleep is like sex vampires.
Yeah.
But it's so fun. I love it.
I like sex vampires.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
So moving on to structure and themes, is the remake a good adaptation of this story?
In what regard? In terms of basic plot beats, yes.
Yeah, it basically follows the exact same rhythm that the book and the original movie do.
In terms of I'm going to bring this up a lot because I kept thinking this the entire time I was watching the movie this morning was, this feels like the very Hollywood version of this movie, where the book and even the first movie, you can feel the soul of the story. And in this, I didn't feel any of that.
I basically just wrote for my notes, in terms of plot and the action, yes. In terms of themes and the characters, not as much.
Yeah. It's like, maybe the Cliff Notes version might be a way to describe it. But there's there's a certain emotions that get invoked when I read Pet Sematary or when I watch the original that didn't happen here. And I even put my phone down for this. I was like, it gets its honest shot again. But I felt the same way like when I walked out of the theater last time.
I think that instead of trying to make this more of like an honest analytical story about death, they just took the plot and say, let's just try to make
a spooky movie.
Yeah, make a spooky movie.
Because there's, and we'll get into this more in scares, I'm sure, but it's like, when they had the choice to do something, they went, what's the spooky Hollywood thing to do? Creepy kids in masks. Yeah, well,
I like the creepy kids in masks, but I get point taken.
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, okay, that was a shot that they put in for the trailer.
Yeah, but that's probably my favorite shot in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, it looks cool. It's just it just doesn't evoke the same feelings from me.
No, but it's totally not from the book.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think the directors assumed that the audience had seen the original? I
100%.
What did you think of how they were specifically teasing you about Judd's heel when he was sneaking around in his bedroom looking for Ellie, and it kept zooming in on his heel.
Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff like that, and how like with the kids and the road, they're like,
road.
Look how close Gage is getting.
Oh,
you remember this, don't you?
Get away from the road.
Yeah, stuff like that.
It also opens with Judd's house on fire.
Yeah.
It has like this drone shot over the trees. You see Judd's house on fire. It shows the Creed's house, and then it fades to them moving in.
I actually kind of really like that shot.
No, the shot looks cool, but I just feel like you don't do that unless you like assume that the majority of the audience has seen the original movie or read the book.
Yeah, it knows what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like it was made for people who like the original movie. Maybe it didn't make the right decisions to do that, but that was their intent, I feel like.
Yeah.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Okay, so let's jump into characters. We've almost forgot to talk about this character for the original movie, so we're going to put this character first with the remake. Let's talk about Winston Churchill. What did you think of Church in this adaptation?
I like the cat.
I like the cat a lot, yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Lewis is gonna like kill the cat in the basement, and at first it's fighting, but then it gives him the sad puppy dog eyes and just starts acting like a normal cat. I'm like, the evil thing from the Micmac burial ground should just do that more often.
Isn't that what, Gage tried to do that? Like, no, Daddy.
Yeah.
I'm getting my stories mixed up a little bit. Is this the one where Lewis and Rachel are trying to scrunk on the bed and it's sitting on the edge of the bed with the dead bird?
Yeah, it does that. I thought that was it's not like there's nothing decent in this movie or no good additions. That was cool because that brought in like the cat being more violent. That was a little bit absent from the...
I thought it was a little more subtle than the cat throwing a dead rat into the bathtub.
Yeah, because it just like brought it in the house and it's eating it.
Yeah, like I've had a cat near me eating a dead thing before. I've never had a cat hurl something dead at me.
And then hiss at you. Yeah.
I'm not... So yeah, I did like Church. I thought Church was good. And no, I don't like this movie, but like you just said, there are some things I like in it.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to one of the things I like. One of the things I actually prefer to the original movie. I think Jason Clarke as Louis Creed is much better than Dale Midkiff in the original, both in terms of the performance and in terms of the writing of the character. He actually feels like a doctor. You actually get to see him do some analysis. He actually talks about taking Church to the vet.
I think he's better in every aspect except for one, and that's who's the dude who played him in the original?
Dale Midkiff.
Whenever he like goes cuckoo bananas, I actually believed he was like crazy in that, where he's like, "Oh, we all go a little crazy sometimes." I never forget that line, or the way he delivers it.
Yeah.
He sounds like super dead inside.
But
that's not really like played into in this version.
No,
so.
I like how when Lewis goes cuckoo bananas in this one, it's very like deep, like kind of subtle, like he looks super tired. He looks so tired he's become crazy.
What else have I seen this dude in?
I know him from Planet of the Apes.
Okay, I'm there.
Yeah. And I don't talk about it a lot, but I'm a huge Planet of the Apes nerd. Yeah. And I was on this guy's team because he was in Planet of the Apes, so... but no, I do just think, in general, he's a better actor than Dale Midkiff. And honestly, I like pretty much all the performances in this movie. To me, like, the good parts of this movie are the performances, the tone, the atmosphere, the music.
Cinematography.
There's some really cool shots.
Budget.
Yeah. And then where it just fails is like the script and how they decided to adapt some characters and some choices they made adapting the story.
The scares, stuff like that. So.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate because it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, next person.
It's a horror movie, but the horror is one of the least important aspects of this story.
It's a slow burn horror movie, and this is, hey, we need a jump scare at this exact moment.
Yeah. Okay, Rachel, played by Amy Seimetz. She was in Alien Covenant. That's the only other thing I've ever seen her in.
I've never seen Alien Covenant.
Don't waste your time.
Yeah. I saw Prometheus and I went, done.
I like Prometheus better.
Oh, God, that's pretty bad.
Well, I kind of like Prometheus, but
yeah.
We're not going to talk about Alien. We already have to talk about Lolita tonight. I'm not engaging you on Alien. I also think Amy Seimetz did a really good job as Rachel. She plays scared really well.
She does play scared really well.
I don't know if I like her more than Denise Crosby in the original, but I thought she did a good job.
It's hard for me to compare the two. I think they just did different things better.
Yeah.
Cuckoo Bananas, whenever Rachel's like really losing it in grief in the original, I've really bought into that there. With this one, it was more like her overall acting, like across the board, seemed better. But
I would probably agree to that.
They're pretty close.
Yeah. No, I think they're both good.
I remember one of the first things whenever we walked out of the theater, I was like, man, did they not talk about like what they're going to tell their kids about death or religion? And I was like, oh wow, is that like not a conversation? That's like one of the first things I bring up.
The only thing where and this is where like I think this just fails as an adaptation. The only time they address death in this prior to Ellie dying is when where Church dies and they debate whether to tell Ellie that Church is dead or Church ran away. You don't have Norma, so you don't have the whole Ellie seeing death through Norma's death and how Judd deals with it. You don't. It's just it makes me upset.
And you don't even get like the babysitter that died, so they have like an earlier funeral.
Yeah. To me, like, the whole story is about how different people view death and how different people deal with death. And they just said, yeah, that's nice, but let's make it spooky scary.
I don't know if this is fair, because maybe I'm, like, just too big of a fanboy of the original. But when I'm watching this one, I'm missing Norma's story more than when I watched the original movie, where I'm like, I would like it, but it'd be more like some extra spice.
Yeah, it's funny because you actually even see Norma in this movie, but she,
like, her entire story missing makes this movie feel more incomplete than the original. But I don't know if that's like a bias.
No, I think it's because this one is less of an adaptation than the original one is, because where the original movie didn't include Norma's story, but it made up for it in so many other ways by just being generally a good adaptation of the book. Yeah. Whereas this is a poor adaptation of the book, plus it's missing Norma's story, and that makes it feel worse.
And then they still try to pull the Norma stuff at the end, and I'm like, you know what would make that really great is if I got to see Norma before this.
You know what? This is a crappy pizza that costs more than a good pizza. Like, I don't care to have crappy pizza as long as I'm not paying a lot of money for it. If I'm paying less money, that's fine. But if it costs more than Papa John's pizza, then I'm pissed.
I really want a pretzel pizza.
Yeah, those are your me. Okay, let's move to Judd, played by John Lithgow. Now, I'm not going to tell you that John Lithgow is better than Fred Gwynne, because he's not.
Yeah. But
I really love what not in terms of the writing of the character, in terms of the performance. I think he does a really good job, and I love him as Judd, which it was a big deal because Judd is by far the most iconic performance in the original movie, and that's like a really, really hard act to follow. He didn't do the same thing. He did like a sadder, more lonely Judd. He didn't do the accent.
He did. Oh, this isn't a criticism for his performance, because his performance is great. Mm-hmm. But they played him much more ominous. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, he's the one with the dark secret, because they always have like music cues around him, or he's standing kind of off and separate from anyone else.
And that's where I don't like how they used Judd,
but the performance is good.
The performance is really good.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a good time to talk about how they completely eliminate Lewis and Judd's relationship in this movie, which is played down in the original movie. Like the whole, he's the man who should have been my father.
Yeah.
You don't really get that much in the original movie, but they still
felt like friends.
Yeah. And this, they don't even seem like they like each other.
Yeah, I wouldn't say antagonistic, but it's like, I kind of don't want this old guy around. And then all of a sudden he's at the party and playing with the kids.
Well, I think what they did is instead of playing up Judd and Lewis's relationship, they play up Ellie and Judd.
That makes sense.
And they kind of do a similar thing that the book does with Lewis, but instead do it with Ellie, where like instead of being like this old codger who wants to tell you stories and builds the world, he's this lonely old man who lost his wife, and now there's this beautiful little girl who moved in across the road, and she brings him out of his shell.
Oh, so Humbert.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, really hate that book. But yeah, it's a cute, in another movie it could have been a cute little story, but yeah. I don't think it adapts the book well.
I agree to that.
But John Lithgow did a good job. Like, I enjoy him. I love when he's stumbling around with the gun and he's just totally ready to shoot this little girl in the face. Speaking of little girls, Ellie, played by Jete Lawrence, she also really good performance, much better than the original. However, I don't think it's really a fair comparison because she's a much older actor. They age up the character from 5 to 9. They use a much older actor. And I looked at her IMDb page compared to the twins who played Ellie in the original, and she's a much more experienced actress.
My opinion is I think she's better until she isn't. And after she dies, I found everything about it cringy. I found it super overacting, and I'm like, I kind of blame the directors for that.
I wouldn't call it cringy, but I definitely... I'm not in love with it.
It was very... What's wrong, Daddy? That kind of stuff. I'm like...
What I want to know is how they got it to look like her face had a stroke. Because she's like that the whole second half of the movie.
I kind of just assumed that it was either like CGI or something, like slightly...
Maybe? I mean, it did...
touched up, because they can age people down now.
Yeah, but this was...
2019.
Yeah, this was 4 years ago. And I want to say, well, it was only 4 years ago, but that technology moves so fast. Like, if you look at Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian Season 2 and comparing to Luke Skywalker in the Book of Boba Fett, it looks completely different.
Yeah.
Or if you look at, like, how Harrison Ford looks de-aged in the new Indiana Jones trailer and compare it to, like, Captain Marvel, where they de-aged Sam Jackson.
Because they got her to look so much more gaunt.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think they would have starved a kid for a role. So I assume...
God, I hope not.
I mean, like, maybe if this was, like, 20 years ago, but these days they, like, too many watchdog groups pay attention to that shit.
I don't know, Daniel. $113 million. Maybe they would starve a little girl.
Maybe for a week.
Maybe for a week.
But I just kind of assumed it was, like, a CGI effect that was just decent enough to where I can't pay attention. Because it's, like, mostly in the dark by that.
Yeah.
Because they're hiding her in the shadows because she's the spooky little girl now.
Mm-hmm. And then Gage is played by twins Hugo and Lucas Lavoie. Good children actors, but the character...
There's just not a lot to talk about.
Character is extremely underused. There's something I wanted to say about Gage. Like, okay, so...
Glad he wasn't hit by a truck.
I was. you know, it's almost worse. Because think of, like, the split second of relief that Lewis felt when he grabbed Gage out from in front of that truck. And then the 2 seconds later when he realized Ellie gets hit by the truck. That's, like, the highest high to the lowest low.
Yeah.
In, like, 2 seconds. So talking about that now, obviously the big thing about this movie is Ellie dies instead of Gage. Which, on the surface of it, on paper, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. They're doing something different.
It's a little treat because, I mean, like, if you literally just adapt the same story again, like, what's the point?
Yeah, you're just doing the same thing again. But I don't think it works as well because in the original movie and in the book, when Gage dies, you get to see how Ellie deals with it, and you don't get the same thing in this movie. You don't get to see how Gage is processing Ellie's death.
I also, whenever a kid of like Gage's age comes back and is like talking weird shit to you, that comes off as creepier to me than when a 9-year-old girl's doing it, because for me it just feels more like acting at that point.
I agree.
None of them are ever going to match the like what I envision in the book of that like 2-year-old kid speaking in full sentences in a weird voice.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of
Norma fucked all your friends.
I mean that's kind of the freaky thing about the book in the original is you're taking a being that was not speaking in complete sentences, was speaking in random words and broken sentences, and now all of a sudden they have the intelligence enough to not only speak normally and in full sentences, but to tell you things that you don't want to know.
So it's an idea that I like on paper, at least for like we're gonna do the same story but a little different, so you don't get exactly the same stuff.
Mm-hmm. It could have worked better if the movie was a little longer and Gage was aged up a little bit, so that there was more of a... You got to see more of, like, his reaction to Ellie dying.
Yeah, something like that.
Because, like, in the book, it's really important, like, how Ellie is walking around with his picture, and she was like, I'm going to sit in his chair, and I'm going to keep his clothes clean, and I'm like...
But for Gage, I'm like, is he even going to remember this?
No. He's 2.
He's 2.
Yeah. He might have, like, some sort of terrible trauma.
Or, like, some, like, vague recollection in the back of his subconscious.
But he's not going to remember her, like, the way, like, I know my brother and you know your siblings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so quickly, our last 2 characters. Victor Pascal, played by Absa Ahmad. I thought he was good, but not as good as the... I mean, I don't think he's bad, but...
He's not bad, but a lot of the decisions around him I think are bad, which is a lot more of that, like...
He's a lot less used.
And when he is used, it's like, jump scare. Oh, the lights are flickering. Oh, he's sitting... Oh, now he's back down. Whereas opposed to, like, in the book or in the original movie where, like, he says some really creepy shit right before he dies that he shouldn't know.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, already seeing the ghost.
And again, like a lot of the other characters... I think the performance is pretty good, but the writing and how it's used, not so great.
That's going to be like the abridged of this review.
Okay, so Zelda was played by Alyssa Brooke Levine. What do you think of Zelda?
It would be my Koontz if I already didn't have a Koontz.
Yeah, it's not my Koontz, but it's low.
It's another one of those things where I was like, Rachel seeing her dying isn't traumatic. We gotta put her in a dumbwaiter, and now she's crawling through the walls.
Rachel!
It was one of those things that I thought was just goofy, that they were trying to make scary. Which isn't the actress's fault.
No. I mean, it's hard for me to, like, critique her performance because it's just
so little of it.
Yeah.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Let's keep going. Let's move to scary shit. Is this movie scary?
I don't think so.
I thought it was the first time I saw it, but the second and third time, no.
I kept getting pulled out of it by little things. And maybe it's just because of how much like horror movie shit I consume. Where I go, okay, this is a shot that they put in because it would look good in a trailer. This is the jump scare that they need in this exact moment.
Why do you even watch horror movies anymore?
Because I keep finding great ones that I love.
Right. Not on this show.
Yeah. Well, we're reviewing Pet Sematary 2019. We had like an entire month of me going, this Ring movie is so good.
I'm like, yeah, it's great.
Ring Kazemon, more incest.
Can we talk about the book more?
I can't wait till we do Spiral.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I thought it was scary when we saw it in theaters, but I don't think it's necessarily because the movie was scary. I think it's because I got so up in my own asshole about this movie because I saw the original movie when I was like 10. Mm-hmm. And then this movie came out 4 years ago, so I was like 30-ish. And I hadn't seen or read any Pet Sematary crap between watching it as a kid and going to see this movie with you and Carrie.
Yeah.
So I had just built it up so much and like crawled up my own butt so much that I built it up so much and I stressed myself out so much. I think that's why it was kind of effective for me in the theater. I rewatched it after I read the book a couple years ago, and then I watched it this week. So I've seen it 3 times. Didn't think it was scary at all the second and third time.
Yeah, I found a lot of the things that I think they wanted to scare me with to be cringy, like the spooky little girl. Oh, nothing happens after you die. Oh, why don't you go see your daughter while I stab you in the kidneys? And I wasn't spooked by any of it.
I didn't think it was scary, but I did think it was kind of creepy that she already essentially killed her mother by stabbing her in the spine. And then apparently, you can see this, it's off screen, but apparently she pulls the knife out, and her mom turns around and slumps down to the floor. And then she just felt the need to put it in her kidneys and twist it around while her mom was dying.
Yeah, I mean, that would be painful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
who's scarier, Ellie in the remake or Gage in the original?
My biases are probably showing, but I think Gage is way scarier. I just think there's something about the literal infant coming back in that dapper little costume.
I do appreciate that the Great and Terrible. They don't say Oz the Great and Terrible.
Yeah.
But they do say the Great and Terrible twice in this movie.
Yeah.
Which was nice. Which church is scarier? Catholics or the Protestants?
Depends on what history, like point in history we're at.
What about which cat?
I'm going to go with the original because this one gave the sad puppy dog eyes, and that's what I keep thinking about.
The only thing that I think I like a little more about this one is that when it comes back, I think they do a better job of making it appear dirty.
Yeah. They did a really good job of also making Ellie appear dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Why'd you put that dress back on, sweetie?
Or that scene where he's giving her a bath.
Yeah, that was...
It was like washing meat.
That a line occurred to me, and like the only time that I like hiccuped like was when he like opens her hair and sees the staples.
Yeah, that
was gross.
I actually kind of like that. So.
Kiss me, fat boy.
To kiss me, fat boy. Who would you need to get a hand job from while watching this movie in order to enjoy it?
You.
I was gonna say you!
Mutual!
Oh, gosh.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Alright, the power of Christ compels you. Again, like the original movie, all references to the resurrection of Christ and the story of Lazarus are gone.
For the original, I think King was trying to get things down to a 90-minute runtime.
Because he wrote the screenplay.
In this one, I think that a lot of Christianity isn't as marketable as it used to be. So that kind of stuff is largely excised from movies that aren't specifically exorcism movies.
The Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That's fair. If they do, well, I'm sure they will do sometime before the world explodes. I'm sure they will do a third adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see it include a little more of the spiritual references.
Me too. I also want Norma. I want Norma more than anything.
This movie teased you.
Yeah.
Because Ellie turns into Norma, and I was like, oh my god, is she going to say it? Yeah. And she teases you like, I fucked all your friends, but she doesn't say it.
I also think that line would mean more if you got to meet sweet old Grandma Norma before you get the line.
Oh my god, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Kings and Koontz. Everything you said about the creepy kids is the funeral procession is true.
Yeah.
They're still my king.
Still your king. Mine's the Ellie bath scene.
That's probably like the most effective scene in the movie.
Yeah, like the clump of hair comes out. Even though I don't like her performance as the creepy kid when she asks what is it, and then he responds, just a tangle.
What is it, Daddy?
Yeah. And he's just like, It's just a tangle. Because he does a great job.
No, Jason Clarke is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to have him back in a third one as Louis Creed if we just had a better script. For me, like, everything you said is true, but I just think, like, visually, with the music, the way that Ellie just wanders into the woods and finds this procession of kids playing this drum, I love it. Like, as a spectacle,
yeah,
I love it. And what's your Koontz? I have a pretty specific Koontz.
I have a very specific Koontz, and I don't know if it's because, like, I'm stupid and I'm not, like, thinking about the movie right. But, like, at the end, he's fighting Ellie, and they're, like, having this epic battle, and then the mom stabs him from behind. I'm like, when did she have time to drag that body up there, bury it in the Pet Sematary?
She hits him with a sink, and he's unconscious for hours. I
still think it's not enough time. Unless it's like a whole day. It doesn't feel like enough time.
It implies that it's an entire night because it's right as it's getting dark when they have that struggle. She hits him with the sink and he goes out, and then when he gets up, the sun is coming up, and Gage is asleep in the car, so it's been like the night.
Okay, I still don't like it. I'm picturing like this little girl dragging this body throughout there, and then I'm like,
I just don't like the ending at all.
Yeah.
So mine is kind of stupid, but that's why it's my Koontz.
Okay.
So you know the line, the line, God can take. Why doesn't God take his own cat? Well, that's adapted in this where Louis and Rachel are arguing, and he says, "Why doesn't God take his own son?" And I'm like, "He did. It's a basis for entire religion."
That's actually pretty good. That's like the whole point. If you're not spoilers,
yeah,
that's how the Bible ends.
I'm not a Christian, but even I know. I think that's kind of what Jesus was about. Like, God took his own son. He asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, and he didn't because God loves. But then for humanity, God took his own son.
Yeah, and sent him to hell for an afternoon.
So, good job, like, idiot who wrote this script. Why doesn't God take his own son? His own kid. I think he says his own kid. But
I think he says his own goddamn daughter.
Yeah, it's
something like that.
But he took his son.
but it's still...
Yeah.
I'm like... No, I agree. That's funny.
Okay. For Zombie Day, obviously...
The reference was great.
Yeah, I normally don't Google these, but I only saw the dairy sign, so I Googled it. And then I had to go back and listen for the Cujo thing. Like, that's so easy to miss.
It's like right in the background at the party.
Yeah. If you missed it, Judd is telling the same story about Cujo that he does in the book, but it's at the party, and it's not the main dialogue. You have to listen for it.
Blink and you miss it.
Yep. And that's my penis in Daniel's mouth. If anybody's wondering, we're getting a head start on our next viewing of Salem of Pet Sematary.
Oh, I thought we were on our next viewing of Lolita. I'm like,
I haven't watched the movies yet.
Oh wow, that's gonna be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then Rachel, like in the book, she drives past a sign for Salem's Lot. This time, she drives past a sign for dairy. Obviously, they changed it because they were the success of the first It movie, and they're promoting the second It movie. Like, it was made sense.
Cross promotion.
Homework. In a third adaptation of Pet Sematary, who are you throwing in front of the truck? It can't be Gage. Can't be Ellie because they've been done. Who are you throwing in front of that truck in the third one?
Judd.
Judd? Why?
Because that's the father I should have had. And he just grew so close to this old man. He's like, he showed me where the Pet Sematary is. And now I'm going to take him back and bring him. And then Judd murders his whole family. So, I'm throwing Louis in front of it. Okay.
But what you find out after Judd, who reanimates the son he should have had, what you find out later is Louis actually had terminal cancer. And in a Sheev Palpatine-esque plot, he kills himself to be reanimated to become immortal.
Okay. That's not bad.
Thank you. All right, for further reading, I don't know.
If you like Stephen King adaptations, there's worse, there's better.
There's a lot worse.
And there's a lot better.
Yeah.
Go watch them. If you like this,
that's fine.
It's fine.
I would imagine if I had not seen the original movie and not read the book, I probably would have liked this movie quite a bit more.
Yeah, I think my opinion of this is only a slightly more harsh opinion that I had of the Boogeyman, because I like the original so much.
You like the
of
source
this.
material more.
Yeah. So
I agree.
But I'm like, I think this movie falls right in line with that kind of...
No, I was getting Boogeyman flashes the entire time, because it's just like really well acted, but I wish they would have done this.
If you're 13 years old and you want to put in a spooky movie with your friends, if you want to go, if you have time on a matinee like when this was out, and you want to eat some popcorn and watch a spooky movie, you can do a lot worse.
Yeah, it's fine.
You can do a lot better, but I'm not going to judge you for watching it.
All right, for our next upcoming on the Horror of Babylon, for our next 4 regular Sunday episodes, this coming Sunday is Daniel's 4th favorite novel of all time, Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov.
It used to be 3rd, but then I read Taipan, and now I have to reevaluate my whole list.
Yeah. And then the next Sunday, we are going to review both film adaptations of Lolita in one episode, do a little compare and contrast. And then we're back the next Sunday, July 2nd, for... Is it MW or is it moi?
I always call it moi.
I always called it MW, but I don't know.
I think somebody told me it was moi at some point, because it's supposed to be the sound you make when you kiss somebody. Like, moi.
Is that sound the same in Japanese? Because like in Japanese, chicks don't say cheep cheep. They say pio pio.
Yeah, frogs go kuro kuro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
onomatopoeias are different. Yeah.
There is logic to what you said, though.
Yeah, but I can't remember where I heard that. What?
Apparently, MW means man woman.
Huh.
So I guess you say MW then. I don't know. I'll try to find a definitive answer. Before we
I'm gonna
record
believe
that.
This guy.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. What you said also makes sense. And then the next Sunday, July the 9th, we are finally getting to Salem's Lot. Finally.
Wait, after we just decided that the movie's never coming out.
So our guy who we've been watching on YouTube, McCord Movies, to keep up on Salem's Lot news, he posted a new video today. A friend of his in the industry emailed him and said it hasn't been officially announced, but they are about to announce Salem's Lot direct on streaming on Hulu September 2nd.
Okay.
Which actually is the week after we wrap up all of our Salem's Lot coverage.
I mean, we could like grab some beers, watch it, and then just immediately record an episode.
No, I think that it's gonna be so bad.
That's why I'm suggesting beers and actually doing it together.
Okay. And then our next 4 bonus episodes are going to be Treehouse of Horror, The Ring, Treehouse of Horror, The Blob, and the next 2 will be our next 2 Four Horsemen sponsored episodes, which will be a review of The Toxic Avenger and Yoko Ono's Fly.
Can't wait.
Which I think I decided what we're going to do for the Fly is we're just going to watch it and record our live reactions.
I think that's great. Let's do that.
That seems way better than trying to talk about it.
Yeah. Right, do you miss the Beatles?
I miss them so much.
I prefer the Kinks.
I know. All right, thank you to our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron. And thank you to Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, or the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and say hello to Ronald III, corporate simp of Orinco. And thank you, Daniel, for rewatching the Pet Sematary remake and recording with me.
All I know is I'm going to get hand jobs.
You better get it before we record Lolita, because it's not happening after.
I thought it was going to happen during.
Nope. Well, I guess I could give one, but I definitely won't be able to receive one.
Yeah.
All right. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary, everybody.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.